Hey guys, it's Haley and welcome to another bookish video. Today we're gonna go ahead and get into my October wrap-up. What did I read during the spookiest month of the year? Well, I read 13 books and I'm about to tell you all about them. But before we get into the wrap-up, I do want to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Beducated. If you've never heard of Beducated before, they are an online platform, a website, or an app where you can learn so much about sex and intimacy in a safe and knowledgeable way. If you took your health class in the Texas public education system like I did, trust me, there's a wealth of information on Beducated that you can benefit from. Their mission is to bring sexual satisfaction and happiness in relationships to everyone. I love that so much. I also love that they're queer inclusive. There are so many different little courses and bites for queer people. I recently got into a new relationship and Beducated has been really great for that, especially when you're learning a new partner, their body, their preferences. It can just be a really fun connecting time, but it can also be really nerve-wracking, and Beducated kind of helps calm those nerves. It will give you all the information that you need. They have experts teaching these little courses that have so much knowledge. It is prime education, and it's also, like I said, a ton of fun. Whether you are in a relationship and you want to spice up your time in the bedroom or you're doing things solo, Beducated has everything for everyone. Here you can see a ton of the different courses. They have so many different categories. You can search for exactly what you're looking for, whether it is non-monogamy, strap-on play, dirty talk, striptease, like they literally have it all. They also have a little quickies tab where you can get a little taste of a bunch of different courses, and that is so much fun, so easy to just see exactly what you're gonna get. So if you want to get a more comprehensive sex education from experts rather than just the wild world out there, then try out Beducated. If you use my code HaileyHughes, you can get 40% off your annual subscription. You can visit my link right here down below and use that code, which is just my name, for 40% off of the yearly pass. Thank you so much to Beducated for sponsoring this video, and now let's go ahead and get into the books. As always, before we get into my reviews, let's look at my stats for October. So as I mentioned, in October I read a total of 13 books, and that was 4,295 pages. And here's my mood breakdown. Very typical for a month full of horror, dark, tense, and mysterious. I read 7 fast-paced books and 6 medium-paced books. As for page number, I read 1 book that was greater than 500 pages, go me, 5 books that were under 300, and then the rest of the 7 were in that sweet spot between 300 and 500 pages. I read all fiction this month, and here is my genre breakdown. Obviously, thriller and horror are at the top. We got some queer stuff, we got some literary, etc. Across my 13 reviews, I had an average rating of 3.69, which is okay, maybe a little lower than some other months. I did have a 2-star and a 2.5 star. I had 3 3-stars, 1 3.5 star, 2 4 stars, 4 4.5 stars, which was honestly edging me the entire month. I was like, please give me a 5-star. And I did end up with 1 5-star read. And here is how I read those pages throughout the month of October. You can see I read in little tiny spurts, and then there were long stretches of time where I read nothing at all. I don't know why. I just like had little reading eras throughout the month of October. I could not read consistently to save my life. Granted, I had a lot of things happening. I moved, I got into a new relationship, so you know, lots going on over here, but I still found time to read. Now let's get into the actual reviews. As always, we're gonna start out with my lowest rated book of the month and work our way up to my favorite book of the month, so we can end on a high note. So the 1 2-star book that I read in October was actually my group book that I had for Halloween in my Patreon. Really sad, but totally on me. I did choose this book knowing very little about it, but I chose it because it's popular. It's everywhere. It seems really well loved. It was on KU. It seemed accessible, okay? And that was What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. I was really excited for us to have an extra group book in my book club other than our book club pick, because I love reading with the girls, but this unfortunately did not work out for me. This takes place in like ye olden times. Like, it's not even like historical. It's giving like Monty Python Renaissance Festival. What do you even call that era? I have no idea.
The Renaissance? No. Yes? I don't know.
But basically, we're following this guy, and he was a soldier, and he gets word from his buddy. He's like, hey, remember your bestie, Madeline? Yeah, she is dying of some kind of weird, mysterious plague. And he's like,
okay, let me run over there.
So he meets up with her brother and this doctor guy. So it's the soldier, the brother, and the doctor, and they're all gathering around Madeline, and they're like, girl, what the hell is wrong with you? And they figure out that the same thing that Madeline is afflicted with is also showing up in the environment. So like, there are these mushrooms that look like human flesh, the rabbits are doing like weird ass things, and it's basically zombie disease. Like, catatonia and like weird shit is happening, and it's affecting people as well as the environment. And that's pretty much where the book stops. You go into this thinking, oh, this is a zombie horror book, and then the peak of the horror is zombies. And it's like, okay, but do something with it. You know what I mean? Like, it stopped with the concept. There was no greater horror other than the existence of the concept, which you could go into the book knowing if you heard one review of this book. It also left off on a cliffhanger. I'm sorry, this is a novella. Like, this is very, very short. It's only 150 pages. Why am I not getting a level of satisfaction and completion? If it was gonna be 2 books, you might as well have just made it a 300-page book. You know what I mean? I thought it was so boring, it went nowhere, and then it didn't even give me a satisfying ending. It was such a waste of time. I apologize if anyone read along. Hopefully you got it on KU for free. Unfortunately, I bought this book. At least I bought it at a very significant bookstore when I was with my long distance bestie in LA. So it has some like significant emotional value to it, because other than that, this book means nothing to me. Moving on to my 2.5 star rated book that I read in October. Unfortunately, this was also for my book club. Sorry for the flopping. Sorry for the flopping, Patreon girls. I had some life events occur in September, so I didn't end up getting around to our September book club pick until the beginning of October. I read our September book club pick, God of the Woods by Liz Moore, the first couple days of October, and I ended up just thinking it was really, really average. The setup of this book is so intriguing. It sounded perfect for me. Set in the 70s at this summer camp, like already the atmosphere, I'm in it. And this little girl goes missing from her bunk, and everyone is frantically searching for this little girl. The thing about this little girl is she is the granddaughter of the owner of the camp, and she's also not the first child from this family to go missing. So it's a greater conspiracy. It's basically like a missing kid thriller set in the 70s. Sounds really great. The issue I had here was the execution. It was very, very, very confused. I feel like we got a lot of information that we didn't need. It is entirely too long. This book is over 400 pages, and we got a lot of useless information. We had probably about 8 or 9 different perspectives that would pop up. A lot of them felt useless. We talked about it a lot in the book club live show, and everyone kind of agreed. The pacing was all over the place. It was really hard to feel invested at times in certain perspectives. And then the overall resolution of what happened to this girl, people had very mixed thoughts on. Me personally, I thought it was just perfectly average. About half of the things that I took away from it I enjoyed. The other half I really did did not. It's fine. Like, it feels like this is a book that the white ladies in the cul-de-sacs are gonna read and be like, oh my god, that was so good. But like, if you're here on this channel, you're not gonna settle for a book club book like that, you know what I mean? So you can skip this one, in my humble opinion. Next up, let's move on to my 3-star books, starting out with a thriller that I had already featured in my new release thriller vlog that I posted in October. That is The Last One at the Wedding by Jason Rekulak. And this one honestly started out really good, but it took a weird turn. It's about a man who reconnects with his daughter leading up to her wedding, and he finds out some creepy things about her groom-to-be. He's like, hey, his family is sketchy. His last wife has gone missing. I'm kind of sketched out. I don't know if I want to let my daughter go be a part of this family. So he basically turns into a middle-aged man, Nancy Drew, and shows up to the wedding trying to expose people. But the like last 50 pages of this book are so weird. This whole book is so unserious, and if it would have just been over the top, ridiculous, unserious, that would have been great. But at the last second, it tries to be like weird pro-cop commentary. I don't know. It didn't sit right with me, okay? So I got a good kick out of it for like the first 85%. And then that last bit just put a weird taste in my mouth. I was gonna give it a 3.5 and say, this is just like an above average thriller, nothing crazy, but like, I like it. And then the weird commentary at the end just threw me off. I was like, I gotta give this a 3. I also gave 3 stars to The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Khaw, which is better than the last thing that I read by Cassandra Khaw. Nothing But Blackened Teeth was horrid. It was one of my least favorite books of a couple years ago, I think. But this one was significantly better. I will say I listened to this one on audio because I was listening to it actually while I was setting up my library and anchoring my bookshelves to the wall. And I really, really wish that I would have read it physically. I think if I read it physically on a reread, my rating will probably go up because the writing is really beautiful, flowery prose, and it was just kind of difficult to take in on audio. I think I would appreciate it a little bit more, and it might settle with a deeper meaning if I read it physically. That's just how my system works. No shade to audiobook reading at all whatsoever, but I tend to take more meaning from flowery writing when I read it physically and I'm able to annotate and actually see the words because I'm pretty visual. But from what I did take away from this book, it is beautifully written and it does have a lot of meaning to it. It's basically a retelling of The Little Mermaid, but instead of a love story, it's about a woman whose voice was taken from her, taking her power back. The weird thing though is that there is kind of like a love plot line that I thought was a little contradicting to the overall message of the book, which definitely lent itself to my lower rating. And because it's very, very, very short, I felt like the concepts couldn't be expanded on too well, although that might be because of me listening to it on audio rather than reading it physically. Maybe I would get more out of it. Basically, I just need to reread this one, but on an initial read with the audio, it was just a 3-star. And the last 3-star book that I read in October was Not Forever, But For Now by Chuck Palahniuk. I love a little Chuck Palahniuk. He's such a weirdo. I love his little fucked up weird ass mind. And this new one is so funny. It's so odd. It's so off-putting. And isn't that just the human race at times? I don't know. Chuck Palahniuk has a kind of pessimistic, nihilistic view of people, and I kind of identify with that heavily at times. This book is following 2 brothers, and they kind of grew up with silver spoons in their mouths. Okay, they're really privileged. They like don't have any semblance of independence, and what they basically carry on their lives doing is killing the help around their estate. So they're talked about as if they're like little boys, like, I don't know, 6 and 8 years old who like need tutors and nannies and someone to bathe them or whatever, but they're literally grown men. And they end up killing all of their like maids and tutors and things like that. And it's like really visceral commentary on male privilege and entitlement and kind of what can happen as this moves through the generations of a family. But it's done in a way that is just so over the top, so off-putting. Like, this is a hard read, okay? It's not easy. And sometimes I think Chuck Palahniuk's tangential style kind of takes away from the overall messaging of his work. So while I did like what this book had to say, at times it was just really, really weird and hard to get through. I get that that's part of the appeal, but this is a subjective rating. And for me, this was just a 3. I think he has other books that have done this better. I did have one 3.5 out of 5 star rated book this month, and that was Guillotine by Delilah S. Dawson. This is a kind of like Saltburn, Ready or Not feeling horror novella about a girl who is going to fashion school, but she is aware, okay? She knows. It doesn't matter if I go to this prestigious fashion school, I'm not gonna really be a part of the fashion industry unless I have an in, okay? Unless I have some kind of privilege, unless I know someone, it ain't happening. So she basically starts fake dating this guy whose mother owns this iconic, huge fashion magazine. And she's like, he's my ticket in, basically. So she goes to this Easter celebration at his like rich mother's estate and this like beach house. It's like so beautiful, so rich people vibes, very, very, very Saltburn coated. And she's trying to get in with this rich family, but some weird rich people deadly games start going on. I would say if you like Good Rich People by Eliza Jane Brazier, you're gonna love this book. I will say though, the commentary was not as well fleshed out as I wanted it to be. There were some things that I felt like the book introduced that I wanted answers to, and the resolution around them was kind of like, oh, I'm at peace not having the answers, which is really great for our character, but not so satisfying for the reader. And then the other issue that led me to lowering my rating is it feels like there was some like half-baked commentary around privilege and class in this book, and there were some like cultural, racial things hinted at, but we never really fully understood the cultural experience of our main character. This is one that I read for a vlog that I posted over on Patreon, and I talked about it a little bit in that video. I am kind of mixed on how I feel about a white author writing ambiguous racial representation, because the main character in this book is said to have kinky hair, like she has this kinky hair routine or whatever, but it also says like she has strawberry blonde hair, and obviously like people of color can have strawberry blonde hair, but it's just, it seemed really ambiguous that like there was no line in the sand of like, this is me commenting on the Mexican experience, this is me commenting on the experience of Black women, like blah 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 blah. It could have been anything that was a line in the sand representation, but it felt like, I don't know, this is total conjecture. Maybe the author did not want to be under fire for misrepresenting something that she is not a part of herself, so she left things ambiguous, which I appreciate the intent to not misrepresent something that you don't really have a full knowledge about, but then I also don't think your commentary is going to be as strong if you don't have that level of understanding. So that's just my kind of initial thought on it. I don't really have a fully formed opinion about it, but something about it left a kind of weird taste in my mouth. Moving on to my 4-star books, we had a couple more thrillers that I featured in my new release thriller vlog, which ended up going really well this month. We have What Have You Done by Sherry Lapina. This is a very straightforward murder mystery. Takes place in a small town. A young girl is found dead on a farm, and we get a ton of perspectives from all around the town, anyone basically who was connected to her, to try to figure out who killed her by the end. I thought this was masterfully done. It was such a well-crafted murder mystery, and a really interesting element is we actually got the murdered girl's perspective as well from beyond the grave. I thought that was a really creative element and added a ton to the story. I really liked the resolution of it. A couple of the red herrings really got me. It was an easy read. It was a fast read. If you're looking for a quick, well-written small town mystery, this is great. And then the other 4-star thriller that I read in October was Love Letters to a Serial Killer by Tasha Coriel. This book was simultaneously like so real and so relatable and so written with commentary, and also so ridiculous, so over the top, and so unserious. And I think striking that balance perfectly is really difficult, but Tasha Coriel really, really did it. She nailed it. It's about this true crime obsessed woman who starts writing to a serial killer and she ends up getting involved with him, and we follow her descent into madness as that occurs throughout the course of the book. It goes absolutely off the rails, and by the end it's just complete madness. This is not a new favorite, but it was extremely entertaining and easy to read. Next up, let's get into my 4.5 star books. These are all the books that I thought probably like halfway through I was like, this is gonna be a 5-star, oh my god, this could be a favorite, and then just a little something about it stopped me. Starting out with Missing Parts by Lucinda Berry. This was the last book that I had to read to finish all of Lucinda Berry's backlist, so there is a Lucinda Berry full backlist rating and ranking video in the works coming very soon in the next week or so. Get ready for that. Subscribe for that if you don't want to miss it. And this book is basically about a woman who goes through one of the worst things that you can go through. Her child dies, and you see how it wrecks her relationship and also completely wrecks her psyche, and she starts fragmenting pieces of her experience due to the trauma, and her life is basically completely taken from her as she blames herself for the demise of her child. It is heart-wrenching. It is emotionally intense. It is less of a thriller and more of a visceral drama about how mental health can deeply impact someone and how an average upper middle class woman can go from being this high-functioning person to homeless just because of a traumatic event. It really speaks to trauma's impact on the brain and on the body, and I appreciated Lucinda Berry's representation so much. The whole story, I just felt so invested in our main character's experience. I never hear anyone talk about this Lucinda Berry book, but it's one of the most visceral. It's really dark, so look up trigger warnings, but I really got a lot out of it. It just did not give me the 5-star feeling, especially at the end. There were some little pieces of the experience that I wish went a little bit different for our main character because I felt so connected to her. I really was rooting for her and I wanted to see her have the ending that I wanted to see her have, you know, like I wanted things to work out for her, and things are okay for her, but there were some things that rubbed me the wrong way. I can't really talk about it without getting into spoilers, but yeah, 4.5. Definitely highly recommend it, but not a favorite of all time. My next 4.5 star rated book is Uzumaki by Junji Ito, and I had this as a 5-star prediction for 2024. Unfortunately, it did not quite make it to the 5-star, but I really loved it. This is obviously a horror manga, if you don't know, and it's beautifully illustrated and really entertaining. It's about this town that is afflicted by spirals, and these spirals just end up taking over and basically spelling the end of this town. And throughout it all, we have this young couple that we're following, and their connection is really sweet. I loved reading about it. This was deeply horrifying. I literally think about it every single time I see a spiral. My boyfriend has also read this book, and we like watched the show as well, and every time there's like a spiral or something, we look at each other, we're like, Uzumaki. So it's really visceral and I think about it a lot, but I think the actual like experience of reading the book sometimes was just a little tiny bit clunky. I don't know. I'm still kind of getting into manga, so it could definitely be that. But that combined with like some of the like stark cutoffs at the end of a section or a chapter didn't really lend itself to being a perfect 5-star favorite for me, but I loved it so much. Next up, we have another thriller, Bye Baby by Carola Lovering. I was surprised in the comments of my vlog that some people didn't like this book. I really loved it, but it also includes a ton of stuff that is just right up my alley. We are following a toxic friendship between two women, and one of them kidnaps the other's baby. Okay, so the first half of this book is basically leading up to the kidnapping. Then we get to read about the kidnapping and what motivated it and everything. And then the second half of this book is all just like wild twists and turns that take place in the aftermath of this kidnapping. But it is really, really character driven. It's really relationship driven, actually. If you're not invested in the relationship between the two main characters, you're not going to care about this book at all, and it's not going to have any emotional impact for you. But for me, because I did care about the relationship and all of the ever-shifting dynamics within it, I was obsessed. I loved it. I think the commentary in here was really good. I think it was paced really well. It was interesting. I highly recommend it if any of those things interest you that I kind of listed off earlier. If you like similar character-driven thrillers to me, I think you'll like this one. It just did not give me the 5-star feeling. I don't know. I can't explain it to you. There was no big twist. There was no like shock. It was just kind of like a quieter thriller. It was really, 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 really well done, but a little bit quieter than I like my thrillers to be. I like a little flashbang boom. And the last 4.5 star rated book that I read in October was The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. Oh my gosh. This book defied my expectations so much. I went in expecting like a female serial killer POV, like Mayfly type of book, and instead I got the perspective of this young girl going through absolute tragedy. So we're following this Korean family, and their father just completely abandoned them. Like the man of the house just deserted, okay? So it's really traumatic for our main character. Her dad is gone and her mother is losing it. And her mother ends up getting involved with this white man who really is fetishizing her. He's a really dangerous person to be around the girls. But our main character and her sister just kind of have to endure it because at least her mother is not like steeped in grief anymore. And at the same time, that experience is foiled by our main character getting involved with a white boy who is kind of like this nice guy. And we see the dissonance and unrest and rage just kind of building in our character throughout the course of the book. And she starts to unconsciously lose control and dissociate. And in these periods of dissociation, she is killing men and eating their eyeballs. So we follow her descent into madness as she does that. It's much, much more rife with commentary than I was expecting, which was a welcome surprise. But I think the pacing was just a little bit slow and it felt a little bit more literary than I was expecting, which definitely impacted my level of enjoyment. Some of the commentary in here is gorgeous. Chapter 32 and 33 are some of the most well-written chapters of any horror book I've ever read. The cultural commentary is phenomenal. The feminist commentary is just fucking ace. Like, it is beautifully, perfectly written. It just defied my expectations and went a little bit slow and a little bit more literary than I was ideally wanting. So I landed on a 4.5 instead of a 5-star. If we're being real, this is more like a 4.75, but I'm not gonna get that picky. And then the very last book that I want to talk about today is the one 5-star book that I read this month, and thank God it was my Pretty Girl book club pick for October. That is Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. Oh my God! I loved this book so much. I have it, but I don't have it here to show you because I immediately finished it and gave it to my boyfriend. I was like, please read this book, sir. Please read this book. Like, I was gonna push it on everyone. So he is reading that right now, but everyone who reads it loves it. Like, it's literally so good. It's literally so good. I haven't read one bad review for this book because it's so good. We're following this little girl named Bella, and she just has like this little average life. Her parents have this little average relationship, but one thing about her life is not average, and that is the demon in her closet that watches her while she sleeps that she refers to as Other Mommy. And Other Mommy every night comes up to her and is like,
Top, Bella, hi.
"Can I go into your heart?" And Bella's obviously getting increasingly and increasingly terrified of this monster, demon thing. So the family freaks out and is wondering, like, how do we address this? It reads really, really similar to the movie Poltergeist. It also has vibes of the movie Insidious. I actually have a Poltergeist tattoo. It's one of my favorite pieces of media of all time. So I loved those vibes. It just stuck out to me so well. The writing style is so unique. I love the perspective of the child and how we kind of like hear everything through Bella's voice. Every piece of commentary within this horror metaphor is filtered through a kid's lens. The trauma commentary in the last third of the book is phenomenal. It is just so well done. It's creepy, it's haunting, but it's also emotional and meaningful. It is the perfect balance of everything I love about horror, and that ending will rip your heart to shreds. Oh my god, it was so good. I am a Josh Mallerman stan. So with that, those are gonna be all of the 13 books that I read this month in October. I hope you guys got a few good recommendations out of this video. If you did and you like this video, go ahead and give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Little reminder to go down below and check out Beducated. You can get 40% off with code hailey hughes of a yearly pass. Thank you so much again for watching this video, and don't forget to go to therapy and read a book this week. I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!